Hey everyone, what's going on? Greg here again from TM Blast. This is a free local SEO audit that I did in July 2024. This is a redacted report, but basically, if you're looking for a local free SEO audit for your business, this is roughly what it's going to look like from TM Blast. So as a note, I don't ask for any first-party data when I do these audits, so there's no Google Analytics data. There's no Search Console from Google or Bing data as well, so I don't know how either bot will crawl your website. I don't look at your backlinks. So again, no Google, no Bing, and I don't even look at that within SEMRush. And then finally, for local, I don't request any access to Google My Business, Apple Maps, or Bing Maps. Everything is based off a third-party estimate using a tool called Local Falcon. If you want to learn more about me, Greg Christen, you can pause this video, but let's continue. High-level summary. So I do this for every audit. I do just a couple of baseline metrics. So for them, back in 2021, they had about 300,000 organic visits to their website per month. Now it's down to about 96. What I noticed when I did the audit, I ran SEMRush about a 5,000 page crawl, and they had duplicate content across the website via hreflang issues. That would actually be the first thing I would fix if I was working on this account. And then I also looked at Local Falcon, used a 30-mile radius as the baseline for a few keywords that I've redacted, just to kind of show what that looks like. High-level summary of local SEO. So for any local SEO client that I have, it starts off with the technical audit and fixes. So for them, for example, hreflang and fixing all the duplicate content would be the first thing. Google My Business is, I would say, about maybe 80% of the SEO strategy. So focusing on the map pack, getting you into more areas around your radius for non-brand keywords. Apple and Bing, I put that about 10% or so of your total activity, or somewhere around that. Every industry is a little different, but that includes directions, website clicks, phone calls, any other KPI that might matter. Build an entity. So that's things like getting on relevant local directories, also getting verifying your listings on Chamber of Commerce sites, or doing anything to really show Google and Bing that you have a presence outside of just your website. Comparative research using SEMrush and Local Falcon. On-page SEO changes, so title tags, internal links, photos, maybe doing some video schema markup. Traffic-wise, it can vary on how much you get. What I've noticed with some local SEO clients is that the majority of their traffic comes to their Google My Business account, depending on what you're looking for. So, like in my experience, an HVAC contractor gets the majority of their phone calls and website clicks from the Google Map Pack, not so much the traditional website listing. And then finally, they review the results. So, on a monthly basis, we go over the report of how everything's progressing. Technical traffic and keyword snapshot. So, for this particular potential client that reached out to me, they have a 62% score. They have some major issues with their hreflang, so I've already addressed that. I ran 5,000 pages as a baseline, just to get an idea of what I would do next, which is fixing that hreflang issue. Again, this is just a third-party estimate, so I don't take this for the exact data, but you can see that the traffic peaked in 2021. It's been on this continuous decline. There's been some Google updates in late 2023, and also we're actually halfway through 2024. So all throughout this year as well, there's been some updates. It's hard to know without having first-party data, but at least a third party can show me organic keyword are increasing, but traffic is decreasing. So that tells me that maybe some target keywords that were ranking at one point, they were doing very well, are not ranking as well, or the SERP has changed, which is why local map pack is actually very critical right now to get right. SEMRush, I've redacted this, but what I like to do is show roughly where the traffic's coming from. So I sorted by the traffic column to show kind of this is where the traffic is going to for this particular keyword. Again, is SEMRush with a third-party estimate. SoLV and local keyword heat map for location. So they have multiple. So they're not out in Albany, New York, but I give this example all the time because when I talk about share of local voice, not everyone knows what I mean. So if you Google anything like kitchen contractors Albany or anywhere that you're looking for that, Google will display 3 organic map pack listings, and you can obviously call them if you're on your phone. That's a huge KPI for a lot of local businesses. So getting to that position 1, 2, or 3 is critical. That's the metric I care about for any local SEO client of mine. So one of their locations, I've redacted their location and the keyword, but it's a 30-mile radius. You can see they're at 0%. So there's no dots on here. They're position 1, 2, or 3. That means if you Googled that keyword and you're in that 30-mile radius, you're not finding them on page 1. What I do is I then look at it from a competitor report, and I can say that the top competitor in your area has a 59% share of local voice. I use that as a baseline because if they become, let's say, a client of mine, I use the comparator report to the gap analysis. So I can see they're 59%, we're at 0. where are the gaps? And the gaps could be things like categories or hours or area code or frequent updates or social media in the knowledge panel. There's more to it than just that, but it's a great baseline just to get an idea of okay, who's winning, where are the obvious gaps that we can first start with to try to increase some share of local voice. That's gonna get some early wins. There's another keyword, same story. So I've redacted it. They're in a 30-mile radius. You see there's more dots here. So they have a 21% share of local voice. You get an idea now how important it is in this 30-mile radius. If you have a particular keyword now that's on page one, so you're going to get some of the phone calls, website clicks, etc. Same report now. In this one, I share that they are the top competitor for this keyword, which is great. But really, we want to grow this number from 21% to something much higher. This is another. So they actually have multiple locations, but here's the second location that they have. So I've redacted that location, and you guys get the idea. 0% for the share of local voice. Top competitor, they have an 87%. So again, I use that just as a baseline to figure out, okay, if they have an 87%, what can we do to rank better? And here's another keyword. They have a 59% share of local voice. So again, I redacted the keyword. You guys get the idea how the report kind of looks. The visual of the heat map is really important. So if you're a local business and you're trying to get more phone calls and business to your company, this scan from Local Falcon is where you really want to start. You want to know what keywords are you're found for on page one and where the gaps are. Sample website SEO optimization. So for local SEO, again, the main focus is Google My Business and also Apple Maps and Bing Maps. But the website also is critical too. So I will do things like sorting by the keywords, what's gained traffic. And they've reached out to me and they said, here's a particular keyword target, we want to improve. And I looked at it on SEMRush of driving no traffic from that particular keyword to their website. So that's an area of opportunity right there. Keyword drop comparison. So what I did was I looked at 2021 versus 2024 to show a particular keyword and how much traffic it drove. Back in 2021, it drove about 13,000 visits, so about 500 visits per day throughout the month, and now it's down to 1,400. So you can see the drop is very severe for them for this particular keyword. So I would really focus on that because if that's a key target and you lost that traffic, obviously Google Map Pack is important, but also from a traditional organic rank perspective, we want to rank for that too. Comparator traffic report. So this report isn't that important to me, to be honest, but they wanted to see this. I use SEMrush. You can put in the organic keywords. You can look at the top opportunities. You can also look at the weak gap analysis, which I did. In the next slide, you can see kind of where they rank versus their competitors. You can get the search volume. This is an okay way to go about local SEO. I focus more on the Google Map Pack, to be honest, but this is still like a good baseline. But I've noticed a lot of SEOs that because basically a lot of times people who reach out to me are talking to other SEO agencies as well. And they might bring this up as, hey, like they're saying, here's the gap analysis. Can you kind of, rank us as well as they are saying? For me, it's more of like, this is just a baseline. I think the Google My Business is more important to rank for, but it's always good to have ideas of kind of where, your competitors are ranking and if we can close the gap. But I don't focus too much on this just because I think there's more important things to win, which is the map pack, not so much the traditional organic listings. Anyway, SEO roadmap. So at the end of this report, now I kind of roughly showcase what I would do next. So duplicate content, big issue. I mentioned, so for Ahrefs language, if you're not familiar, you can have two languages on a website. You can actually have plenty more than just two, but for them, they have English and Spanish. There's a major issue with the Spanish version of the site, which is causing duplicate content across the entire website. So if you were searching in Spanish for what they offer, you're not finding those pages because the Ahrefs link, Google and Bing can't understand the difference of the two. So what they're looking at two pages that look very identical and they don't know which one to show. And when there's confusion, they both don't show the results up as high because they're not as confident in the results. So fixing that would essentially increase the traffic. Expand the share of local voice for Google My Business keyword. So I gave a few examples, but I would really focus on using their Google My Business query report directly in their dashboard if I had access to it. Run the local Falcon scans and then keep saying, okay, well, here's the share of local voice for this keyword. What can we do to help improve the radius so we can get more phone calls and website clicks? Review Apple Maps and Bing Maps. So again, I want to squeeze as much opportunity as possible. There are people like me who use Bing over Google. I also use DuckDuckGo as well. DuckDuckGo defaults to Apple Maps. So if you're searching on DuckDuckGo, it goes to Apple Maps, and for Bing, obviously goes to Bing Maps. So those are areas of opportunity. Not everyone's always on Google. So I want to make sure that we're optimizing descriptions, categories, photos, anything we can do. The website. So, look at the drops that took place. I gave an example. Keyword gap analysis is going to be very critical. My main source is local Falcon, just to look at the keywords and what we can do to help improve the share of local voice. And then each month we go over the reports. Here's some case studies, just if you guys care or not. But so I have a few 5-star reviews from people, and let's get into it. So this is a client that I have. They're out in Georgia. We've been working out together for 1 month. I improved for one of their target keywords based on their query report, which is driving most of their impressions. I improved the share of local voice from 10% to 60% in 1 month. This is just one keyword, but it's indicative of what we're going to do for their other keywords. This is a client out of Massachusetts, 20% to 53%. They have a 5-mile radius because they have multiple locations. So there's a lot of overlap. So I'm only just showing one, but they have multiple locations in Massachusetts. So when that happens, I have to be aware that there could be some cannibalization that takes place, which is why for this particular client, I have very specific radiuses. There's not too much overlap. So we're focusing on each area that we can get as many dots in position 1, 2, or 3. There's a client out in Brooklyn, improved their share of local voice from 3% to 67%. Obviously in Brooklyn, radius is going to be very small because of how densely populated it is, and also from public transportation as well. We didn't want to make it too big of a radius. This is a client out in Manhattan, New York, 10% to 95% share of local voice. This is a client out in Saratoga Springs, New York. I improved their share of local voice from 10% to 42%. That took a few months. And then TM Blast, I have a 91% share of local voice and a 30-mile radius for the keyword New York local SEO. You can see from left went from 19% to 91. Some other things too. I own a website called Stadium Reviews. This is all before the helpful, Google content update, but the traffic went from 1 million to 2.6 million year over year. Then I have a current client. This is the old Google Analytics, but it's just easier to kind of show this because we didn't have GA4 back then, but their traffic was up 35% year over year. And this is another project as well that's growing. Again, this is an older report, but I like to kind of show a mix between, Google Analytics data and some local Falcon data too. But anyway, that is the local SEO audit. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you're looking for a free local SEO audit for your business, feel free to go to tmblast.com. You can fill out the form, or you can simply respond to this video, ask for a free local SEO audit, and I will create something very similar to this. Anyway, thanks guys for watching, and as always, have a good rest of your day.